your definition of Asian is literally like 50% of the world's population.
If you look at the banana, so that's me in the banana case, you're wondering.
Whatever you do, it's about constantly learning, being curious, but also being critical.
Wrinkly brains for life, eh?
Exactly.
Alrighty, well, kia ora, good morning. Lawrence, welcome to the Banana Lab podcast. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Romy. Kia ora, it's good to be here.
You and I already know each other. We've done a couple of things. We've done a little bit of scheming over our common missions, which I love.
Yeah.
But do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself so that the folks listening can get a bit of an idea? They may have recognized you, actually. They might have seen you around.
Sure. Kia ora koutou. Ko Lawrence Xu-Nan toki inwas. I'm Lawrence. I'm one of the Green Party MPs. This is my first term. I'm very excited. But in terms of whakapapa, so I whakapapa to China. I was born in Tianjin, grew up here in East Auckland, Pakuranga in the 90s, where all of the Asians are at.
Yeah.
And now it's a little bit more over the shore as well as East Auckland and various other parts. But if you're going back even further, in terms of ancestry, northeastern China, but also to what is considered like the northern plains. So you're looking at, if you're going back even further, looking at kind of the northern plains of like now northern Uyghur, Mongolia, southern Russia, and Tajikistan kind of area. Yeah.
Cool. So where were the hangout spots in Pakuranga back in the day?
Pakuranga Plaza.
Yeah.
So
it's still going strong.
It's still going strong.
Yeah.
Pakuranga Plaza. So growing up, so this would be in 97. I came here and I went straight into back then called Form 1, now Year 7.
Yes.
And
what school did you go to?
Pakuranga Intermediate and then Pakuranga College.
Nice.
And so very much like Pakuranga Plaza was a hangout spot because back then it was like Sound and Central Park. They had free PS2, so that's where I spent all my weekends playing.
Fancy.
That's where I spent a lot of time playing Tekken 3. And there's a story of how Tekken 3 then influenced some of my stuff, like activities and hobbies later on in life. But then there was also very memorable. There was a comic book shop. There.
Oh my goodness, RIP comic book shops, right? They're not really a thing anymore, are they?
It's not a really thing anymore. So when they closed, I actually bought a whole bunch of their comics.
Smart.
And, some of my favorite series, Sailor Moon and Saint Seiya, very 80s. But it was also, because now like manga, anime, huge, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and all those. I started reading One Piece in 98.
Oh, so
I was one of the OGs.
Back in my day.
I'm like, now I'm 38. I'm like, very much, I can use back in my day.
Yes.
So, I would finish school in Pakuranga Intermediate. I'll go with my friends. We'll go to the comic book store and we'll rent out a comic. I somehow two comics a day.
Yep.
$2 per comic.
Yep. I love this.
And then going to Wendy's across the road for what used to be a $1 menu.
Yes.
So
inflation has hit the fast food market hard.
Absolutely. And then go home and play Pokemon Red and Blue on my emulator.
Iconic. I grew up a couple years later than you, so I grew up in the Nintendo DS days.
Oh, yeah.
And I was always really terrible at gaming, but it was kind of the cool thing to do, particularly among the Asian kids, I feel like they all just had like a Nintendo game, and Cooking Mama was the game, actually.
Yeah, very much so. Cooking Mama has led to a lot of fights in my friend group. Oh, no, actually, not Cooking Mama. Overcooked has led to a lot of fighting. Oh, my goodness.
Okay. Do you play Overcooked?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to talk about this. So I recently got Overcooked on the PlayStation, and it's just like such a great game.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It really gets my brain wiring going unlike anything else. And I'm like, there's no reason that I should be pumping out 15 sushis and 5 sashimi at the same time, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah. And then, everything's on fire. And then if you're playing co-op, you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, so this must be how it feels to be Gordon Ramsay.
Yes. No wonder he's so angry. Yeah. So you're a Green MP, and I can imagine that this was something. It's a bit of a milestone for our community, right? To be seeing younger Asian politicians in Parliament. So, what did your family say when you said that this was what you were going to do?
It's very Well, I'm quite lucky. So my mom was always kind of she was very tolerant. She was very, growing up, she was like, her one message to me, it was like, you are going to spend most of your waking hour at work, so you might as well do something you love. So she never restricted in terms of what I have to do. Grandparents,
quite progressive from an Asian parent.
Very progressive. The bar was much lower, I think, for my brother, which is great because, it allows my brother who's a lot younger than me, he's 13 years younger than me, allow him to kind of explore things that he wants to do as well.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the things we're doing never really quite sit well with my granddad. So kind of like the previous generation.
Yeah.
I remember when I was going to uni, and then I decided I don't want to do med.
Great decision.
And then decided, because you can't conjoin with a med, and I want to do arts.
Okay.
So at the beginning, I majored in philosophy, which then I changed to ancient history. We can talk about some of that later as well. But then I also had a degree in science. I have a Bachelor of Science in pharmacology.
Oh, yeah. I see.
So, I was telling my granddad this, and he had a full-on tantrum at the restaurant. Like, what are you going to do with science? Like, you were going to do med. You had this idea. But then, so, when I told him that I was going to be, running for the Greens, and then, my mom was all like, oh, yeah, you do whatever you want. My granddad was like, but the Greens just care about, like, drugs and, and they are up to no good. I'm like, granddad, that's kind of like a very early 20s, I think, people's perspective. But I think, because we don't see a lot of representation of the Green Party within the Asian media, like they're very much focused on, some of the earlier days. I mean, don't get me wrong, Chloe just put out an announcement around cannabis again, because it's been 5 years since the cannabis referendum, and we want to very much see drug as a health issue rather than a crime issue. But I think, like there is some of that, but I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think at some of the sort of encouragement that I've been receiving from the Asian communities as a Green MP, and also before standing as a Green candidate. I think, but particularly from the younger generations, I think the older generations has been harder to convince. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've contributed to changing the perception of the Green Party among our Asian community?
I hope so. So I do sort of weekly kind of show on AM 936, which is the one of the bigger Chinese radio stations. And I think that the key thing is I'm able to communicate things in Chinese to the Chinese communities. But also recognizing being the only Chinese MP in opposition, you also kind of fulfill a different role, not just as a Green MP, but also as an MP, opposition MP, and showing people the dynamics of what a democratic society looks like here in Aotearoa. But I think a lot of the things I've been saying have been based on comments, which is not accurate and not evidence-based, but based on the comments, the people either kind of love what I say or like hate what I say. But the division is very much like kind of like 50-50, which is much better than I thought, to be perfectly honest.
And obviously, you guys represent your parties, and you've got, your party is kind of that priority that you have to drive forward. But when you're in Parliament, is there a bit of camaraderie amongst the Asian MPs, or do you guys just kind of stick to your own parties? Yeah,
so with the other Asian MPs, definitely with the other Chinese MPs, I talk to...
Shout out Nancy Lowe.
Nancy.
When are you coming on the show, Nancy?
Nancy and Carlos. And, there is definitely that. But I think, the good thing about being a Green MP, which is actually in the world of politics is a luxury for us, is that we can very much speak our mind. We're able to exhibit our individuality, and it's the same whether we're in, if you look in the previous few years where we have various agreements with, the Labour government, we're still being able to showcase some of that, our individuality, our own voice. And I think that's really important, because I do think that, if you look at Parliament and you pan to the Green section, and it's just a diversity of colors and cultural attires. Like, I don't wear suits in Parliament. I wear sort of more modernized sort of Chinese styles, the kind of high, Mandarin color, as they call it. And that's how I want to be seen in Parliament, and that's fine.
And that's quite cool that you can do that.
And you can do that
in this day and age, right? It's completely acceptable for you, or maybe not completely.
Even though, like, they were, some of them, some people are like, do give me the occasional like sneer, or I can see their face scrunching up, and so you kind of like sashay in front of them just a little bit more, and just kind of like do a couple of twirls.
Yes, I mean, let's be honest, as a white people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Quick fire questions. Nicest person in Parliament?
Oh, like in general?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the first thing is, if I'm looking at, immediately coming to mind is the nicest person in Parliament that you don't expect. Like, I expect all of my green colleagues.
Yeah, give me that one. So, nicest person in Parliament that you don't expect. Yeah, let's start there.
Pakuranga.
Okay.
Who is the national MP for Taranaki King Country and also the deputy speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Best banter of the MPs?
Best banter.
I'm really putting you on the spot here, eh?
Yeah, I'm like, who do I have a good banter with? I think best banter is anything that involves Francisco Hernandez. Yeah, I think being, like our Green Caucus has a lot of millennial MPs. And we often say it's like the government is unprepared, or Parliament is unprepared for a lot of millennial MPs.
Yeah.
Because you are like, you can say shit about us, but we said worse things about ourselves growing up. So I'm like, coming at me, because like a lot of times, like for millennials, like we already gone through that trauma, and there's nothing you can say that's, that I haven't already thought about myself. And now I'm just like laughing in your face when you say stuff like that. And I think the likes of Winston Peters, etc., just they cannot fathom the fact that you have people who are just like, oh, you're like, migrants, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm laughing in your face. When they're like, oh, migrants should just be grateful because, and I'm like, I am grateful, and I'm grateful for the free speech. So I'm telling you that you should probably retire.
I love it. I love it.
So anything with Fran is a good time.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Who's the funniest person that you've come across in Parliament?
Oh God! These are all like really, really hard questions.
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm asking
think.
you all the things that you don't probably have to think about day to day.
Yeah,
right?
definitely not. Funniest.
Who loves to just crack a joke?
Actually, in our caucus, I would say the funniest person was Benjamin, who was amazing. And a friend, I think also, like I said, got this really cool deadbeat humor that I really like. But, in terms of others, I think Glenn Bennett from Labour is good. Ruben Davison is another one. I think because they've got... Like Ruben Davison in particular comes from like a media background, so they always are able to be like kind of think on the spot, very much kind of improv sort of based. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to keep my eyes out next time. All right, so for those who don't know, Lawrence, you're actually Dr. Lawrence, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. And you've got a PhD in Egyptology?
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember the first time I heard that, because I saw, Dr. Lawrence, I was like, oh yeah, he's just like one of those, another smart person that's become a politician. And then, he must have had a PhD in something crazy that's really relevant to being in government. And then I heard Egyptology and I was like, what?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Peer pressure.
Okay.
Honestly, if I'm being really honest, peer pressure. Because Pakuranga College in my year in particular is a very geeky year. We have multiple PhD graduates, doctors, optometrists, dentists, lawyers, and all of those. And all of my good friends were doing Egyptology at uni for that one paper, Anchor's 100.
So it must have been the vibe that year or something.
It was the vibe of year. Maybe it was the friends I've had. But it was very much like that scene in Mean Girls when they're like getting loser, we're all doing Egyptology. And that was kind of like what kind of happened. But then I started doing it and I was really, really good at it. I really enjoy the topic. I love my lecturer. And, I was really good at hieroglyphs when we started moving into learning about ancient Egyptian languages. And my friends kind of left over the years, and I kind of stuck with it. And then to the point that, eventually I worked my way up to having my PhD.
Amazing.
But also I think, when I remember this, when I first started, and I would tell myself otherwise now knowing what I know. But when I started, I wanted to do ancient Chinese history because, I thought it was really relevant.
Kind of close the circle.
Middle Chinese in particular.
Yeah.
And I was told I wasn't allowed to do that. I could do sort of the history papers, and you'd be like, you can do propaganda movies during cultural. I'm just like, I have no interest in modern history. I have only interest in ancient history. But some of the ancient languages, they were like, you can't do that because you're Chinese. And then, because
what?
Chinese is your first language.
How does that even make
it's like,
sense?
you're going to have advantage over other students sort of thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll go and do ancient history. But then I'm like, but we don't tell native English speakers, you're not allowed to do English because you have advantage over.
That's a great point.
Students whose English is a second language. And I'm like, why does it matter then?
What are you trying to say, educational institutions?
Well, I think now things have changed, but again, this is early 2000s as well. So I will probably advise people to investigate it more, asking it is this genuinely a entry requirement? Is it just something that one particular person has made an assumption that you're going to be really good at Middle Chinese? And I'm like, I couldn't, back then I could do conversational Chinese because my family's here, but I couldn't, if you're let's talk about politics, let's talk about the weather, let's talk about science and the latest scientific research.
Yes. Because how old were you when you moved here?
I was 10.
Okay, cool. I was born here, so same. I grew up speaking Korean at home. So conversationally, fine. I can talk about what I'm going to have for dinner. I can talk about what I'm doing on the weekend. Sweet as soon as it gets to anything serious.
Yeah. I remember having this conversation, I think ages ago with a relative, and then I was like, I couldn't remember the term for cholesterol. And I was like, cholesterol, that the fat under your skin, what do you call that? And they were like, cholesterol. And I'm like, yes, that one.
Oh no. It's bad when you're old enough that you got to start talking about cholesterol.
Well, no, I can't remember what they're talking about. I think I was talking about having a balanced diet and eating less fat. And then because I need to watch my cholesterol level. And this was in my early 20s. But then I remember that particular conversation. But going back to your question. So, and I did kind of Egyptology. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. Particularly I got to travel a lot when I was doing my PhD.
Cool. Did you get to go to Egypt?
Yeah, so I normally spend about 3 to 4 months a year in Egypt.
No way. That's so cool.
I was living there, but also working on various, so I was working on a conservation project while I was there in Gibberlane, so just about 30K south of Luxor. So I mainly stayed in Luxor, which is more of a second home to me than any other place.
That's amazing. Yeah. The experience there must have been so different.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I loved about Egypt is the people are so incredibly positive. So, you will go there, and I was there when they had the huge market crash. So to give an example, in 2016, Egyptian currency plummeted. It was New Zealand dollars to 4 Egyptian pound, and overnight it went from $1 Egyptian dollars to 1 New Zealand dollars to 13 Egyptian pounds.
Okay.
So, that 2016 when I was there, I was like a poor student, but I'm like, I'm feeling this is terrible for the locals, but it has benefited me because suddenly I'm like our currency is able to stretch a lot further.
Yeah.
But I was talking to them, and they're like, "How can you afford? Sugar has doubled in price, and some of the staples, bread has doubled in price.
Yes.
The staples of the Egyptian diet." And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's been a really struggle, but at least I still have my family, I still have my health, alhamdulillah." And I was like, that would have not been what I would say if over here, things have doubled in price. So,
do you feel like what do you feel like our Asian cultures are like when it comes to outlook on life? Because there's such a variety of experiences, right? I mean, my parents migrated here from Korea in the 90s, and that is a very different experience to people who have done most of their adulthood here and come in and whatnot.
Yep.
What do you? How do you feel like we're like as a people? I guess
this is this is one of my bugbears, which is a homogenization of the Asian experience here in Aotearoa. When we do sense and when we do things, we split things out. But we talk about Asian, and I'm like, your definition of Asian is literally like 50% of the world's population.
And I guess this is a really good reflection for me as well, is the way that I use the term is a great reflection on what that term has meant for me coming forward, right?
Yeah.
Because if I was to advocate for my people from Korea, for example,
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. No one would listen to me. I wouldn't get any traction out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's through using that catch-all term, even though I know it's incorrect, that's almost like that just gives me enough credit to be able to talk about this as a problem or as an issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely understand what you're saying about the diverse range of experiences.
And if you're looking at like from a from a Chinese perspective, and a lot of the time I'm the spokesperson for ethnic communities, and a lot of people are like, oh, what is the Asian experience? I'm like, I can't speak to the Chinese experience, but what do you consider Asian also includes Korean, Indian, Southeast Asian, Filipino, Indonesian, Indian. I'm like, I can't relate because my history is different. And even within the Chinese communities,
China's a gigantic country, right?
It's a gigantic country. When you're in China, you never consider yourself. You don't talk about, oh, I am from China. You go like, I'm from a particular region. And in that sense, it's very similar to, if you're looking at, Tonga Whenua, you're looking at Māori talking about like, oh, I'm Ngati Whātua Orake. I am, Ngati Parou. I am, Ngati Wai, and etc. Because those kind of areas very much shapes what your perspective is. And I talk about the fact that I'm from Tianjin. I'm very much a northerner. And Tianjin is... even though it's next to Beijing, it's one of the biggest cities, but it's kind of got its own unique culture. It is dubbed the Florida of China, but then with the Cockney accent kind of thing, and the Cockney of the UK. It's just probably one of the... And I love it dearly, but it's probably one of the more bogan areas.
That's not what I was expecting you to say.
100%, like Tianjin, and I wear that as a badge of honor. It's the most bogan city in China.
I love that.
And I love that. But then the thing is, over here, you'd be like, oh, but you're Chinese. And I'm like, I don't know what the experience it is from Canton. I don't know what the experience is from Yunnan. I don't know what the experience is from, various other areas. And even then, if you unpack it even further, I'm like, I'm maybe what I consider the fourth wave of immigration in the 90s. I don't know the experience of people who are here since the mining ages in the 1800s. I don't know what the experience of people who are here to escape from Cultural Revolution in the 50s and 60s. Or even the experience of international students coming in the 2010s, 2020s. So it's not just about... I think I have more of a responsibility to be curious and to be open-minded and to be like, oh, well, actually, let's look at all of these experiences. But I think also putting the message out there to say like the Asian communities in Aotearoa were now 17.2%, I think, from the latest census. It's so much more diverse than you could possibly imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can't just put them in one single pigeonhole.
Absolutely. And this is what we've connected over outside of this space as well, particularly around mental health in our Asian communities, right? And that the diversity and the need is growing. The challenges that our community faces are so many different kinds, yet the systems are not structured to support our communities in the way that they need, eh?
And I think our communities have not been structured to support our own. And I think, there's more education that needs to be done within our own communities as well to unpack some of those issues like racism, like all of those. But even then, you're looking at, New Zealand-born Asians such as yourself, and also people who are of kind of dual ethnicities. My brother is half Chinese, half Dutch. And growing up, he had a very different experience because then, you get the people who are like, oh, well, you are white passing. But at the same time, they struggle with identifying with either of their identities, as well as being, what it means to be a New Zealander and all of those. So it is complex. But I think we are seeing more and more through, even podcasts such as this. We're seeing more and more of that understanding, and I feel like young people in general and young Asian New Zealanders actually also have that emotional maturity that their parents may not even have. Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record, but it's that sort of, as adults, we have the benefit of hindsight, of maturity, of growth, of being surrounded by more people who have similar stories to us, where we can look back and kind of acknowledge some of the fucked up things, but also some of the really important experiences that shaped us as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really why we wanted to create this platform. I mean, if you look at the banana, so that's me in the banana case, if you're wondering. But we went for the metaphor of the banana because for me, I really resonated with that experience of almost feeling kind of white on the inside, or having a level of kind of normality around that whiteness or that white culture. But obviously my parents really makes me who I am. So for you, has the way that you see your identity in regards to culture, has it changed over time?
A lot. And I think, like growing up in the 90s, even though growing up in Pakuranga, so Pakuranga, like our high school, Pakuranga College, had a huge Asian population. And I went to Pakuranga Intermediate as well. And I first came here, didn't speak a word of English and I have to learn English from scratch. And I could say, hello,
what was that
good
like
morning.
for you? That must have been hard.
It was. And, there was just the age before internet and, dial-up just became, started to become a thing. So, no Google Translate, none of those. So you learn English. My mom made me learn English through just copying English books and news articles. And I learned English through TV. And so, things that were really memorable growing up. I mean, Friends I watched to a certain extent, but the show that I love and I love to this day and has aged surprisingly well is The Nanny. But the problem with The Nanny is that I didn't realize, because, when you come from China and you watch a show on TV and you be like, it's all in English.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the amount of Yiddish that is in The Nanny.
Of course, yes.
So I would learn that, and I would learn that. I would go to school and I'll talk about mishpucha and tuchas and,
I can imagine
and the teacher was like, how did you learn? Where did you learn
this
your
young,
English?
Kiwi, Chinese, Jewish language situation going on.
What is going on? But I didn't know any of that. And I think the other show, and so, you kind of go through different phases of kind of supernatural kind of genres. So we're now very much still in the superheroes genre. We went through a vampire genre, a zombie genre, a werewolf genre. In the 90s, it was all about witchcraft. So it started with, the craft, and you have practical magic, you have Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and then there's Charmed.
I haven't heard all of these words for so long.
And Charmed was also a show that I loved. Also, in hindsight, I'm like, slight digression. When I came out to my mom, and then, I love Charmed, and my mom's like, but you have all of those posters of women in your room. And I'm like, I don't know how to express to you that Charmed is very much like a queer kind of and the same thing, Will and Grace being another one. So in hindsight, I'm like, I should have known back then in third form, in year 9. But so I learned my English from those kind of shows, but the problem is that there are just no Asian in a Western context at then. So, now I look at the importance of representation, and people don't talk about it. I'm like, as a white kid, you never go, I'm like, I wonder what can be when I grow up, because it's all on TV.
Absolutely.
Whereas the two that I remember the most, if you're looking at kind of TV shows, it was... The most memorable was Lucy Liu in Ally McBeal
Icon.
and Charlie's Angels. You get an Asian person who are in a Western environment and being able to dominate. Another stage, it wasn't all about their Asian identity. And it was just about the fact that it was kind of like, Lucy Liu in those kind of shows. Alex, in Charlie's Angels. And the other one was Mutia from Sugar Babes. Because, when it first came out with Overload, I loved it. And it was like, wow, a singer, singing English who is Asian.
Yes.
And over time, a lot of us had that internalized racism, where we're like, our lives would be so much easier if we were white, and we imagine what it'd be like, and you're acting a particular way. But I think now, people are like, oh, wouldn't you wish when you were younger? It's like, actually, I prefer the age I'm in now because I'm so much more confident than I was before. Not having to worry about things like body image issues, scrawny Asian kid who's really nerdy. But that, now we're also kind of regaining our culture and, like looking a bit more, my friends and I who are all Chinese from the same 1.5 generation, now being a lot more proud of our heritage and then starting to, like wear attires that reflect who we are and our traditions. So I think that is something that I have learned as part of this journey, but it's always, and that has changed over time. It wasn't always easy.
And, I have a very similar experience, and same with my peers as well, of growing up and not seeing that representation, right? And it's a little bit fucked up, but every time we saw someone that even looked vaguely like us, it was so exciting.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it shouldn't really be like that. So my hope is that with all the amazing media and all the amazing creative work that's going on these days, I mean, this podcast is an example of another thing that's creative, and we're showcasing a bit of diversity as well, that for those who are, those kids of today can have a little bit of a different experience as well.
But it's also showcasing that you can do anything you want and put your mind to it. Because, again, there's the stereotype, right? Asian kids, you're going to law, you're going to engineering, you're going to med, you're good at math, you got the Asian 5 at school. I did not do the Asian 5 at school. I did 3 out of 5.
No, me neither. I think I failed my physics paper when you were 13.
I didn't even do physics. I'm like, no, physics is just, I like chem and bio, I understand. Physics, I just do not understand. But also, and shout out to the people like Nathan Zhou and Nick Tse, and who are very much like top of their respective fields within arts and creative industries and etc. And so for people who are able to go like, oh, I can be a poet and be one of the best poets. I can be a playwright and be a really well-known New Zealand playwright, but also Asian. So I think those kind of messages are also, and those kind of representations, and people can see that is also really important now.
And I mean, you and I, we both really didn't end up going into typical Asian careers either.
No.
I had that same thing of coming out of year 13, going to uni and going, oh shit, what am I supposed to tick on the application form? But, I do what I love, and I that is priceless to me. Like, I didn't realize that I could do something that I loved and I actually felt really passionate about every day as a job. And I know you feel like that about what you do as well.
Yeah, and a lot of that, we talked a lot about, youth mental health, and particularly mental health in the Asian space. And I think it's I was going to say, sorry, you were...
No, I was just saying, Lawrence and I do a bit of scheming in our sort of day job hats on, and basically we're just trying to take over the world and sort of, that's a good way to describe it, eh? Yeah.
Make it better.
Yes. Yeah. Make it much better.
Make it more equitable. Make it so that people can do what they want to do, and that's
thrive,
okay.
And be happy. And have an awesome life.
Yeah, have an awesome life, regardless of what to do. Not that you have to, in order for you to do something or be someone, you have to go into certain careers and certain industry. And I think this is one of the things, and I was going to say, huge shout out to K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yes.
And
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, but it's also so amazing because it really taps into sort of the forbidden topic of any sort of Asian culture, which is mental health. And, and I think the idea of the analogy of what Romy had to go through is really, really powerful. And then this is a great movie, I think, for parents to have that conversation with their children about mental health, and for children to talk to their parents about mental health. And I think, particularly when you're looking at like, the song, What It Sounds Like, I think it's called, the one I'm referring to.
You've watched it more than me, I think.
Okay. I listen to the soundtrack a lot.
He knows.
And I think the lyrics resonate to the point, and, in terms of my own experience, my own struggles growing up, it really... it was incredibly emotional. And it was one of the, again, even though I'm even though I'm much older, you still have that experience. I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time I'm seeing something that speaks to me and my experience. This is wild. Is it do white people experience this on a daily basis? Like, do they take it for granted? Because I'm not taking it for granted. The kind of emotions that movie is giving me. You know, like, and I think I still haven't managed to get through the entire song without crying yet.
That's beautiful, but it just goes to show that connection, you know, the connection to self is actually is what I'm thinking of here. It can take something as little as a movie, you know, in the big scheme of things, one movie is not that significant. And I mean, if this is the experience, what it's been like for you watching it, I can imagine, you know, every time someone sees representation or someone sees a story portrayed in a way that we understand and we get it, that's really special, you know, that's... and we need more of that stuff, right? We need more of that good stuff.
Absolutely. And you know, like, it's with those kind of things, you know, like, this is why education and all of those play such a big role, because you just want people to grow up to be confident and be happy. You know, you don't want people to be like, growing up, it's like, oh, I finally managed to make it to be, you know, in a particular profession. I was going to say a particular profession. I'm like, no, that profession is fine. You know, there are people who love that profession. But then be miserable about it and then see that profession as like a means to an end. And you kind of constantly be like, oh, I'm going to need to do enough so that I can have a good retirement. And I'm like, why wait until you need to retire?
Absolutely.
Life is for you to enjoy right now.
Life is not just about working.
Yeah, life is not just about work.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So before we finish up, I want to touch on something quickly. I believe you are the first openly neurodivergent Asian MP in Parliament. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I've been quite open about my neurodivergency, particularly, you know, as ADHD. And, you know, again, going back to K-pop Demon Hunters, I think there was a line
the K-pop Demon Hunters is the middle. It always comes back.
It's the middle of that Venn diagram. But, you know, like, one of the lines was always saying, you know, why do I feel, you know, covering up all of the colors inside my head? And it very much speaks to, like, the way that neurodivergency is treated within the Asian community, that people kind of don't see that as being a strength and being a superpower. But yeah, like, first the neurodivergent, first openly neurodivergent Asian MP, but also I think second queer Asian MP, first Asian, first gay Chinese MP, queer Chinese MP. So, but yeah, again, like, representation, even in politics, it really matters. You know, I said there are two, other than, you know, green MPs as well, Malama Davidson in particular, and Aotearoa, but there were two non-green MPs that had a real impact in not so much me wanting to get into politics, but me seeing myself like, oh, wow, Asian people can, you know, people like me can do that. And one of them is Pansy Wong, who's the first Asian MP.
A legend of our time.
Very much so. And it's wild to think that, you know, considering the history of Asian people in Aotearoa, that the first person is like in the 90s. And then the other one is Chris Carter, who's the first openly queer MP. And again, I'm like, oh my God, gay people can do politics, and they're not going to be like, it's all about their gayness. So I do think that is really important. And even though we don't want to, like, categorize or pigeonhole, but then for people to know, like, oh, I can be something, I can do that, is really powerful.
That's beautiful. I hear so much, you know, when you talk to me about your story around kind of that openness and that hope and that willingness to always do something different. Like, that's what I hear, and I love that about that adventurous side about you, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good because, like, you know, I'm the education spokesperson, but I also think that, you know, fundamentally with anything, whatever you do, it's about constantly learning, being curious, but also being critical. Like, whatever you see in the news, don't assume that it's accurate.
Oh my goodness, please do not. Like, never.
Yeah, so whatever you hear, you know, be like, oh, I wonder what the source of the information is. I wonder where they get that data from. And I think this is the other thing is, if you see education as a means to an end to go into a job. Once you get into a job, people then be like, I've done my learning. I don't need to learn anymore. And they stop learning. They stop asking questions. But that needs to be a lifelong thing. We need to continuously ask questions.
Wrinkly brains for life, eh?
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Lawrence, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Time's
Thank you,
flown.
Romy.
We could talk for hours.
We can definitely talk for hours. We're just scratching the surface. Just basically peeling the first layer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We love a little banana metaphor.
Yeah.
So thanks again for joining us on the Banana Lab, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah. See you soon. Thanks all.